What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Retro Encounter. Today is a very, very special episode. A little bit different than normal. We did this last year where we celebrated BlizzCon with a very special episode. And how can I talk about Blizzard games without mentioning Sollosi?
Hi, everybody. Doing this again. I think BlizzCon last year was maybe our first bonus round. Because we were just trying out that concept, but now we've had like 10 bonus rounds, and we just
had more than that.
Yeah, probably. I'd have to check a list, but BlizzCon rolled around again, and we're still excited to talk about it again. So we're doing the BlizzCon bonus round again, and man, I'm excited to start talking about it. Where do you want to start?
I guess two caveats. One, is only the end of day one. We wanted to get this out to you guys as quickly as possible.
Right.
So we're recording after day one. So if anything crazy happens on day two, we don't know. So
yeah, there will be some more extra details on day two. I know during one of the Diablo panels they mentioned they were going to tell us more about the necromancer skills during day two. Spoiler alert, there's a necromancer. But
spoiler alert for the later in the podcast.
Sure, spoiler alert for 45 minutes later when we talk about Diablo. But the bulk of what they talked about was or the bulk of the reveals were even in just the first keynote speech, which was earlier today. And so we're going to post this episode a few days after recording it, which is a much faster turnover than usual.
Yeah, second caveat, which is not a caveat, is we're going to try to go basically in the order that the conference went, or at least the order that we remember the conference going in.
Right. Okay.
Which is World of Warcraft, Starcraft, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and then Diablo.
And it's it's kind of crazy to think from 1998 to 2011, Blizzard had 3 series and were still one of the biggest computer game companies in the world. And now they're at 6 series and they're still one of the biggest computer game companies in the world. They're just way more diverse now than they were as recently as 5 years ago.
Well, and that was first of all, they're not even just a computer company anymore. You look at
I know
Diablo and Hearthstone and Overwatch, like they are taking over everything.
I was being very unfair, but I still think of them as a PC gaming company.
Oh, absolutely, they are. But and that was the thing that really struck me is, like they started going through all these dates, like 25 years, 20 years, 10 years. So 25 for Blizzard, 20 for Diablo, 10 for BlizzCon. And it's just like, all of a sudden it just really like starts to strike you that, like, I didn't even play Diablo when I was a kid. I was one of those kids that wasn't allowed to play it. First of all, because I didn't really have a PC, and then my mom was like, "You're not playing a game that's called the devil."
Yeah. I played it at a friend's house for the first time. And
right.
He had played it a little bit already, and he wanted to see me try it, and I thought it was pretty cool. I played as the sorcerer character and stumbled around, didn't control his magic well. But my friend had me do that with the sole purpose of having me frightened by the butcher on the second floor. And I yelped like a tiny puppy when that thing killed me, and I was actually kind of afraid of Diablo for a year. This is maybe when I was 10.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. So I didn't play Diablo 1. I've never touched Diablo 1. I dabbled with Diablo 2 at a friend's house, and I would have been 3rd grade, something like that. But it was one of those things, like it like that really struck me of, because I remember those like little kid moments, you know, and you fast forward so many years later, and it's still something that's relevant. It's still something that I actually care about. I'm interested in. And it just like there is a sense of nostalgia there when we're not even talking about. I mean, they talked about old things, but like there's a history there that makes it adds to the mystique that is Blizzard. I don't know. And I thought they did a really good job playing that up in the keynote.
Yeah, I don't have memories of Blizzard going back to their earliest games either. The first one I played, the first Blizzard game I played was Warcraft 2, and I tried Diablo at my friend's house after I had only been playing Warcraft 2 for a short time. And over the years I played almost all of their stuff. I never got into WoW because I don't like MMOs, and I didn't get into Starcraft 2 because I had a zillion games to play when Starcraft 2 was coming out with each of its games. But still, Blizzard is one of the most important companies to building up my history with video games. And Diablo is one of my lifelong game obsessions ever since I got seriously into Diablo 2 when I was in high school, which would have been the early 2000s. So it is super fun seeing how big they have become, and seeing this, they have their own big marquee event every year, which explains their lack of showings at E3 to a degree. And yeah, the first 5 or 10 minutes of that keynote when they went through the 25 years of Blizzard history was sort of nostalgic and impressive at the same time. Although I did notice they didn't really show any images from or gameplay from Rock and Roll Racing, because all of the classic rock songs that they have in that game would make it impossible to license.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I guess after we got that, we really started delving in. They just went in order. They started bragging about Warcraft. They specifically the movie, which, complete side note, because we talked about it a lot last year.
Mm-hmm.
I actually watched the movie like a week ago.
I watched it in theaters last year.
Good for you.
Maybe not right when it came out, but within a few weeks.
True fan.
Well, I also mentioned I've never played World of Warcraft, so I don't know.
That's a good point.
I don't know how true a fan I am.
So I guess, complete aside, before we actually delve into this, what did you think of it as somebody that didn't play WoW?
Well, I mean, the movie was mostly the events of Warcraft 1. So I was familiar, and because I played plenty of 2 and 3, I was familiar with characters like Lothar and Medivh, and Gul'dan, because I think like every Warcraft game you have to find Gul'dan's skull, basically.
Yeah, Gul'dan's always dying and coming back to life.
Yeah, so I was familiar with most of the names, if not all of them, and I thought that I thought that parts of it were really good. Like the some of the one of the end scenes where they have Lothar fighting an orc in some like an orcish ritual was pretty cool, and I would have liked I think so, yeah, and I think I would have liked to see more of the orcish tribal stuff more, because I just found the orcs more interesting than the humans. But when they tried to go for higher fantasy stuff, like the magic rituals Medivh was doing, and all the human politics stuff that was happening in the big council scenes, just seemed like it didn't really ring with. I wasn't impressed by it. I thought that it felt like a slightly generic fantasy movie, and I enjoyed seeing some characters I recognized, and I thought the orcs were cool, but I would not say it's as good. It's definitely not as good as, say, a Lord of the Rings, even though they were going for a Lord of the Rings level of scale.
So it's funny that you mentioned Lord of the Rings. So I had originally brought it up because I was hoping that you didn't have the background, because I felt like they did a really terrible job, like, explaining what was going on.
Oh yeah, no,
they expected you to play the games or at least know the lore.
I didn't even realize that Lothar was was the guy that died in Warcraft 2 until like the credits rolled.
But I was watching it with my wife, and she was super lost. But the one thing she said before she walked out of the room, because she was done with it, was it looks like they're trying to do Lord of the Rings with a little bit of Game of Thrones, and they're not even close to as good as either. Which I thought was actually a really good comment.
It is, and I totally agree.
But I kind of walked away from it. I was pleasantly surprised. I came in with low expectations, which helped, but I was overall happy with it, and I was happy for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But to get back to the conference, when we were going through our predictions, which we did okay on, one of the predictions I should have pointed out, and I was still like expecting this, is I thought they were going to tease or announce or mention that they were going to do a second movie.
And I didn't really think of that before the show, but as they were showing the Warcraft stuff, and they mentioned how successful Warcraft had been with, we have this many subscribers, and the movie was hugely successful last year. While he was saying that, I thought, oh, maybe they'll show a trailer for the next Warcraft movie. The way he was setting it up, I half expected it, but it never came.
Right, and I was both. I was disappointed because they did such a good build-up, but also kind of disappointed. The movie was good enough that I'm interested enough to see what they will do with it. I'm hoping they learned kind of from their mistakes, and they can just. It was their first stab at doing a movie. But yeah,
it's a good director. It was Duncan Jones directed it,
Right.
and he directed Moon and a bunch of other very good movies. So like I know that there's talent there and passion there, but I felt like the first Warcraft movie was a little underwhelming, and like you said, maybe they could learn from their mistakes and have a better second go of it, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
They mentioned that the movie was successful during the keynote, but that was it.
Yeah, which I took it as we'll do this eventually. But they easily transitioned from Warcraft to World of Warcraft. And they're
Well, they didn't have much to announce about Warcraft.
no,
It,
there's
it
well, there's nothing going on right now.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of their presence with Diablo last year, because last year Diablo didn't have anything on the main stage, but during the panels they announced a bunch of free content coming with patches, and that's what Warcraft is in now. They didn't have anything huge to announce, but there is a significant number of things coming in above average sized patches. Like
Yeah, they had their major patch for Return to Karazhan.
yeah, and then they tease stuff in upcoming patches that are coming soon in upcoming patches. So that, like there's Warcraft stuff happening, but nothing that was big enough to have any real presence on the main stage.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, when we're not, I've played a bunch of WoW, but I have not played it recently in the last like couple expansions. So we're not the people to go to for WoW.
Right, and again, I've never played WoW or I've played one MMO in my whole life, but it's not really something I'm very familiar with.
But they did a very good job making sure that there wasn't really anything for us to have to try to cover. It was I actually I kind of we assumed because Legion just came out recently that there wouldn't be, but it was still I was surprised because it was kind of a ho hum start. Like you have Warcraft movie, nothing to come off of it. World of Warcraft, again, not really anything because we're between expansions and we're not going to announce the next one. And I felt like that same kind of lack of energy transition into Starcraft, where they're like, yeah, we still got Starcraft. That's a thing.
Yeah, they announced they were continuing doing those Nova co-op mission packs, and then they immediately transitioned into an artificial intelligence scientist coming out talking about how they're looking at StarCraft for AIs for improving AI technology, and then that was it. It was they spent even less time on StarCraft than Warcraft, even though Warcraft didn't have a major announcement.
Yeah, that was so. As like an analyst and a tech nerd, and like I do like machine learning, like all of that stuff. Like I know what they're doing, and it's fascinating. It does not belong on the main stage.
Yeah. These are some of the most talented and scientists in the world at what they do, and they are working with cutting edge stuff. But it was boring. It would have been a terrific panel, but I mean,
Yep.
I don't know why they gave him more than 5 minutes on the main stage.
Well, I started looking at it, and I was like, "Do you guys have an hour?" And he just took a sixth of it. Like, what? Is there nothing else after this? And then you started I started looking at the clock, and I was like, "We've gone through history, Warcraft, and Starcraft, and whatever's going on here, and we have like 25 minutes left for the stuff that actually matters." So it seemed like, which they just it ended up being that they just went like 20 minutes long, so it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like it was a rough start. But then as soon as Overwatch starts, like, all right, well, all forgiven. I don't care. We're into the really good stuff.
Yeah,
and
the four non-Warcraft, non-Starcraft games all had plenty to say, and that was
they were so good.
yeah, it was really terrific listening to the Overwatch heroes, Hearthstone, and Diablo stuff. So Overwatch was next. They formally announced Sombra with a new trailer. She was and they had been hinting at her for weeks with this.
Well, it also leaked.
Yeah, well, it leaked, and there was this ARG thing that went on for weeks, and fans were sick of it, frankly. And Mike Morhaime on stage even like joked at how everyone already knew she was coming. But she's a really really cool seeming character. She has a teleport that works from a beacon that she can throw, and she can hack into turrets and hack into her opponent's abilities, and and even hack like health drop off points so that they won't drop health for her opponents. She seems like a really manipulator, crazy kind of character that I'm sure Overwatch players are going to enjoy. It looked wild.
And that was so just to kind of combine Overwatch and Heroes of Storm really quickly.
Hmm.
The three characters they announced for that are so vastly different than anything else that we've seen in either of those games.
Yeah.
Have such a like they're so versatile. Like they're fascinating to watch and like think of like what had to go into to design those. And like I super stoked once I saw like those three
Yeah,
characters.
we can talk about the two Heroes of the Storm characters later, but yeah, Sombra also her trailer was a really action-packed, cool spy infiltration thing that also had Reaper and Widowmaker in it. And
So do you actually play Overwatch?
I have played it, but I do not own it. I played it on a friend's PS4, and I
Okay.
find it really impressive. But I am just total garbage at team FPS games, or
Um,
at any multiplayer FPS. But Overwatch is super cool, and because I love Heroes of the Storm, I would love to see more Overwatch characters in Heroes of the Storm.
Okay, because these cinematic like they have a word for them, like cinematic shorts, but I can't remember. They have an official term for it. They're at like
They're animated shorts. Yeah.
yeah, they're at like seven of these now, and if you take a game that has literally no story because it's all like competitive multiplayer, and they have done such a good job with these super high quality like 5 to 7 minute videos that I genuinely feel like I know these characters. Like there's such an extra dynamic to
Hmm.
all the Overwatch characters, and this is, I think the one for Zom, I thought the one today was like my actual favorite one that I've seen thus far too.
I
Um,
think I've seen. I don't know if I've seen all of them, but I've at least seen four to my memory. And they were. I was shocked at how beautiful the first one was that I saw. I saw the Winston one first.
mhm.
Maybe it was maybe it was the first one, maybe not.
It's
And
either the first or the second one, yeah.
yeah, but and it was so beautiful. Like I mean, like the images of the baby gorilla looking at the stars, and how he had become jaded and bitter, and how it ends on a really optimistic note. Like I mean, tears almost came to my eyes. And the Blizzard has always been amazingly good at CGI cinematics, but doing them into these little short films are so impressive. All of the Overwatch shorts are great. This new one was really good. And I will watch, even though I'm not really an Overwatch player. I will watch all of these as they come out. They're terrific.
Yeah, and that's I wasn't sure if you had followed a lot of those, but I like I watch the countdowns for these because they're so
I've seen.
fantastic.
Well, maybe you can correct me. I've seen the Winston one. I've seen the Tracer one. I've seen the Soldier 76 one, and
Hmm.
I saw this new one. But I think those are the only ones I've seen. Did I
there
miss one?
there's one in a museum. There's an assassination one. Which I guess
The
that
assassination
was
one.
technically the
Yeah,
tracer.
that's the Tracer one. I have not seen the museum one though. I think.
There's a dragons one with the like Genji,
Oh
the
yes,
ninja.
yeah, with Genji and his brother Hanzo. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have seen that one. I forgot
and
about that.
then it's not out yet, but they're about to release one for Bastion.
Okay,
So I think there's been six. I'm trying to look it up online
so
really quick.
the Bastion will be the seventh one, which means I've only missed one. So I'll have to seek out that museum one later. But
If you have the virtual pass, which the listeners, this does not help you. But they have a session tomorrow that I believe they're playing all of them.
I did buy the virtual ticket this time. I wanted to watch the Diablo and Heroes of the Storm panels, and I was suspicious because last year with the Cho'Gall release, that was something they gave out for free to virtual ticket
Mm,
holders,
mm.
and I wanted one in case there was something like that again.
Fair enough.
There wasn't, or at least there hasn't been one announced yet. But I mean, I'm still getting some portraits and pets and mounts out of it, so I'm not.
You got
I'm not
that
upset.
sweet card back for when you start playing Hearthstone with me.
And well, you also got that sweet Nexus Tiger mount when you start playing Heroes of the Storm with me.
Oh, I do play, and now I have to because they have that fascinating like Overwatch Hero of the Storm crossover if you play with friends.
Right, we can talk about that a little later, but sticking to Overwatch for now. I mean, how I think
I'm just enjoy you trying to wrangle me in on one topic.
well, yeah, I'm trying to keep this a little streamlined. Because otherwise we'll forget something. Like I didn't last year. I got distracted talking about Diablo that I forgot to mention, like the stash increases. But anyway, anyway, I thought maybe one of the biggest announcements from the whole show was this Overwatch League thing. It's because I mean, Blizzard has been getting more and more into esports the past as the years go on. That's a surprise to nobody. But with the Overwatch League that they're starting in 2017, they're going to hold combines and tryouts and have North American cities as sort of regional points, so that they're going to try and develop regional fandoms instead of company fandoms. Because when you follow an esports group nowadays, because everything's run through Twitch or YouTube, if you say that you're a fan of, I don't know, Astral Authority or Dignitas, it doesn't matter whether one's North American or European for the most part, because they're all international companies, basically, or international sports franchises. But actually trying to start a regionalized league is huge to me. It is Blizzard openly trying to make esports more like athletic sports in a really obvious way, and I really am curious to see how successful this Overwatch League is, because it is one of the boldest steps I've ever seen esports take.
Yeah, so somebody will take me to task for this, and that's fine. You guys can do it in the comments. I would argue that Blizzard was the original esports company. They if not started it, were the one that brought it mainstream, and that would be with Starcraft, and then with WoW Arena. And they have
even before WoW Arena, Blizzard inadvertently helped invent the MOBA genre with Defense of the Ancients. But that we would need a whole podcast to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But they've been taking baby steps towards this with a combination of Here's the Dorm, and then also Hearthstone.
I filled out a bracket for Heroes of the Dorm.
Nice. Hearthstone has their also college tournaments. They just wrapped up their college tour. It was like this huge thing. So it's kind of a natural progression for them. So personally for me, I don't care about I have so and so from Chicago or from Milwaukee that from my region, like that doesn't mean anything to me. The idea of making it more readily available. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping to Hearthstone. I am extremely good at Hearthstone. I finish in the top 1% every month. Bad months, I'm in 2 or 3%. I spend way too much time with it. I am not in a situation that I'd probably ever be able to go pro, but also the world is built that it's not really feasible. They were talking about how even the person that wins the Hearthstone Championship this year, and I think they get paid out $250,000. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But you start looking at the number of hours that it took to grind to be in ladder place to be able to get enough points to get invited to things, the number of hours for all the open tournaments on all of those types of things. And they were talking about really at the end of the day, if they had probably had a different job and they had spent the same number of hours, they actually would have made more money. And a lot of these you're grinding out 60 to 80 hours a week to be able just to have a shot for some of this stuff. And that's where I think this is like where the league truly gains its power.
Right, because not only is their organization, they mentioned they would have minimum salaries, player benefits,
right,
and incentive benefits, and a free agency system.
Right, and that's one of those things. Like at the end of the day, America, in a lot of ways, they can't compete. There's a reason that Sweden does really, really well. They have government subsidies for a lot of things, so a lot of these players are able to just not do anything other than play these games. Or you look at Korea, I have no idea what's set up out there, but something's working out there.
It's either something in the water, or the fact that I think their national sports are League of Legends and Starcraft.
Yeah,
like Americans follow football and baseball the way Koreans
right.
follow League of Legends and Starcraft.
And that's one of those things is like they're making an effort to not only make it an American sport, but to make it a worldwide sport, and they're laying the groundwork for a lot of like average Joes. I mean, still you have to be really good. You still have to spend a tremendous amount of time, but the barrier of entry to be able to at least have a chance at being seen is going to be lowered tremendously if this actually is able to work. And then also you're not going to die because your tooth gets a cavity and it gets so bad that your jaw falls off and you die.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, how you don't really care about regionality of sports, but and I would argue that it's important because in current esports, like I mentioned before, you might be more. I mean, you or I, or okay, someone from the United States would be more likely to root for a North American team over a European or Korean or Chinese team, maybe. But in general, there is not a lot of regionality in esports. But in athletic sports, there's a ton of regionality. Like I live in the Washington D.C. area, and there are the fandom for the Nationals, Capitals, Wizards, and Native Americans is huge in the D.C. area, and like people in Chicago root for the Bulls, Bears, and Cubs.
Wait.
Wait,
Did you just call the Redskins the Native Americans?
Yeah, I refer to them as the Native Americans or the Washington Professional Football Team because that's a racist word.
Okay, carry on.
Anyway, regionality is a thing in most sports. You are more likely to root for your home team than not root for your home team if you're a sports fan. But creating a regionality to the Overwatch League, I think, would make it easier to bring in casual fans or even non-fans that would want to root for a team from their city, like that, or like having combines and tryouts and drafts so that different teams can compete for the best talent is, I think, better for the quality of the sport and for fans and for the players.
No, I don't disagree with you. I just don't necessarily agree with you.
Okay.
I
think it's super. I think it's super fascinating, regardless. And I'm interested to see.
Is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I really wonder how quickly something similar is made for something like Call of Duty, or I mean, they wouldn't be in the fighting community because they stay separate. But even
the fighting game community is very insular and weird about esports. But
Madden. Maybe even too.
Right, but groups like Major League Gaming have tried to do things like this before, but I'm not sure how much involvement the big companies like Activision have in those leagues. But Blizzard is really all in on esports, and this Overwatch League, I think, is their biggest, boldest step into esports, and I really am curious to see how it goes. Even though I'm not an Overwatch player.
And so again, you're gonna have to write me in. I think that's actually the most disappointing part of this is, although Overwatch is a new shiny, it is the worst Blizzard game to be able to have on as like a professional game.
Oh, you think it's maybe the worst spectator esport?
Yes.
Okay.
Hearthstone by far the best. Everything's there. They can talk through it. There's enough time. They can explain everything. Super, super easy. I think Starcraft is moderately easy. It's very complex, but the nice thing is it's typically one-on-one. They're able to zone in on the action. There's enough time to explain what's going on.
I think Heroes of the Storm and maybe MOBAs in general are a very successful esport because
that was my next one. Is I think that is a slightly more complex than StarCraft, but still simple enough.
But it's also 5-on-5. Destroy the enemy's base as a concept, right. and following the action is a very doable thing. So I think that MOBAs are the most popular esport in the world as a genre for a lot of reasons that make sense.
Absolutely. And the great thing as a spectator, you're seeing the same angle as the players in a lot of regards. Mm-hmm. Again, there's enough going on. There's enough shiny flashiness. There's special skills. There's likable characters that are being played. There's a team there, so you are getting the team aspects like we were talking before.
I think that drafts in Heroes of the Storm and other MOBAs are a really interesting thing on their own, but that's separate.
Yeah. And so all three of those games, I think, make sense as a spectator or bringing in people that don't necessarily understand what's going on. I have watched very small amounts of Overwatch for actual real games. I watch stream stuff all the time. I'm fine because I play the game all the time. When I used to watch like Halo when it was competitive, and I used to watch some Call of Duty, those streams looked like crap.
It's hard to follow the action from a first-person perspective of the player, and I don't know how good they are about getting a third-person camera to view the action, but it's probably confusing since there's a lot going on in the different corridors of any given Overwatch map. And yeah, I think there's a reason that shooters haven't become a spectator esport the way that fighting games or MOBAs have.
Yeah, and
Because
so
if anything, fighting games I think are the purest esport possible. But
yes, absolutely.
but we don't need to talk about those here. It is an unusual choice that they pick Overwatch to be the big Blizzard supported league over their other properties, and they are giving attention to Heroes of the Storm. They've made some announcements before BlizzCon about its prize pool for the 2017 season, but it's not at the level of organization and accessibility that this Overwatch League is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's because of the college stuff for Hearthstone and Heroes that they took a step back with Overwatch and it was like we're gonna start something fresh with this. But that just kind of caught me off guard. That was the game that they chose. The only thing I can think of is, first of all, everybody loves first-person shooters, and then also it's Activision Blizzard instead of just Blizzard. And I could see them doing this same system for Call of Duty.
And Overwatch has only been out for a few months, but they announced that sometime in October they crossed the threshold of 20 million users, which is a large user base and it's been a very impressive launch in general.
Yes, yeah, it has. Yeah, so I think Overwatch is in a really good place. I'm super interested to see how this all turns out. I hope it goes well, because like you said, a lot of the MLG stuff that they've tried at this, it for the most part just failed, or at least it's maybe succeeded in a small portion, but definitely didn't hit mainstream.
It may be it may be underwhelmed, but now that esports has gotten bigger every year, now a lot of big companies are stepping in to try and get a slice of the esports pie. And
Pie.
Riot Games and Valve have made unthinkable amounts of money from League of Legends and Dota 2 esports, and
The
Blizzard,
Dota Compendium.
yeah, and the Dota 2 International, I think the prize pool was, so not the prize for just the winners, but for all of the major competitors was, I think it crossed $25 million.
It was insane.
Probably way higher than that. I don't follow Dota 2 that closely. But yeah, esports is big money, and Blizzard is very interested in squeezing as much esports as they can out of their games. And yeah, Overwatch League, the Heroes of the Storm 2017 stuff, Hearthstone just making money hand over fist all the time. They're in a fascinating place as a company.
Yes, yeah, they're in a very enviable spot. So we kind of referenced it earlier, but Heroes of the Storm got 2 new characters.
Yes, they did. Oh,
2
man.
really cool characters. And so this is the time that I mute my mic and I let Mike just go off on this.
All right. Well, you mute one mic and then let the other mic just go completely nuts. All right. So Heroes of the Storm, on the last podcast, on the Child of Light Part 1 podcast, I predicted that they would release 3 characters, and one of them would be either Kel'Thuzad or Malthael. And I was wrong on both counts. They only announced 2 characters, and they were King Varian from World of Warcraft. He's the king of the Alliance. He's a human warrior. And Ragnaros, the fire elemental, which is a very powerful raid boss from early in World of Warcraft's history. And I don't know a ton about the lore of Ragnaros or Varian, but I'm led to believe that Varian had a big role in the last WoW expansion and has been around a long time. And Ragnaros was a very memorable raid boss that was in both challenging to complete at first and sort of impressive in scale for early WoW. So these are 2 signature World of Warcraft characters. And Varian is really interesting because of his build diversity. Now, every Heroes of the Storm character has build diversity. I mean, Heroes of the Storm is a 5-on-5 game where each player is controlling a different hero or character. There's about 60 of them in the game now. And as you play, you gain levels and get stronger, and as you gain levels, you choose talents that, improve your skills, and which talents you choose at which levels, contributes to the build diversity of the game. But Varian has huge build diversity, because he's depending on your talent choices, especially at level 10, he can either be a sword and shield warrior with 50% bonus health and defensive skills and taunts, or a broadsword two-handed warrior that has a bunch of dashes and like armor breaking moves, or a double sword dual wield warrior that attacks twice as quickly and gets critical hits about 3 times as often. So that was a lot of technical BS at once, and I apologize for that. But basically, I mean, Heroes of the Storm characters are classified as either assassins that deal damage, warriors that are good at taking damage, supports that are good at preventing damage, or specialists that don't really fall into any of those categories. But Varian is the first multi-class warrior assassin. Because his build diversity is so wide, his role totally changes depending on how you build him during the game, and he can fulfill the role of a main tank or of a high damage like hero slayer. It's and to a degree, there's other heroes that can do that. Like, one of my favorite characters to play is Sonya, who is a high damage, high sustained warrior. But even if I build her for as much damage as possible, she's still going to be, she's still going to have the same attack speed and the same suite of moves. But Varian, with the different talent choices he makes, he is a completely different character based on your choice at level 10. And those 3 choices that I brought up earlier are also 3 ways of building a warrior in World of Warcraft. So I think Blizzard's approach with him was to encapsulate a warrior class from World of Warcraft. And also because he's the king of the Alliance, another one of his abilities allows him to put a banner from one of 3 different kingdoms that gives a passive boost. So like they're making him to just be an emblem of the Alliance faction in World of Warcraft and warriors in World of Warcraft, and have him with a very wide variety of builds and roles for him to play. It's super interesting what they're going to do with him. My fear is that because he's going to be a warrior assassin, he'll be underwhelming at both roles. Which is a problem because generally you can.
In all fairness, he's going to be super OP when he comes out, because every new character is super OP when they come out.
I would argue only maybe 80% of characters are. But it's true when you look at characters right when they come out. They usually have to have a nerf within 1 or 2 weeks. And I think the current new character Samuro is probably going to need a second nerf because he was still OP after the first one. And sometimes when they launch a character, they are undertuned. Like when they launched Medivh over the summer, his win rate was like 30%.
Solid.
And Blizzard wants all of their characters in that sweet spot, 48 to 52%.
Yep.
So it's possible that Varian will be way overpowered, but because his build diversity is so wide that they couldn't call him just one class, I'm super interested to see how he ends up fitting into the meta. But if anything, Ragnaros looks more fun than Varian, because Ragnaros is he's an assassin, so he just deals a bunch of fire damage to everyone. Is the gist of his character. But he has one of the most fun special character traits I've ever seen in this game, where he can occupy either one of your allied buildings or the empty spot where a building used to be, and turn into a stationary giant version of himself, which is an approximation of the raid boss that he was in World of Warcraft, and all of his moves become different and giant. Like his hammer smash move that he has as a normal sized hero becomes a wide sweep that takes up like enough room to fit 20 heroes in when he's in his giant form. And one of his special moves is a lava wave that covers an entire third of the map. Everything about Ragnaros is just huge and big and flashy, and their design approach with him was to make you feel like a raid boss, like make you feel like one of the most powerful bosses in the game when you're using him. And because I know the Heroes team really cares about flavor and feel when they design new heroes, that is exciting to me. Like, I cannot wait to try out Ragnaros and feel like the final boss of a game, just flattening tiny heroes trying to defeat me. It sounds so exciting. And
yeah, Varian looks cool. Like the concept of him is cool. But to me, he strikes me as somebody that would be really good for a team because then you have the flexibility when you're going against a different team to be able to adapt to what they pick and what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Um, Rag just looks like fun, just like absolute fun. And that's if I were, cause obviously they're gonna cost a boatload of like in-game currency to get. I would absolutely gravitate towards Rag because I would just have a ball playing.
He looks super fun. Like, I don't think either of them are as conceptually interesting as Cho'Gall from last year, because
Cho'Gall was a
yeah,
mess.
yeah, Cho'Gall was a total mess. But also, I mean, it was really exciting because I had never heard of a character that is controlled by two players in a game like this, and they also gave him out for free to about half of the Heroes of the Storm players, and then allowed him to be passed around and shared afterwards.
Like video.
Yeah, yeah, right, like an STD. But and neither Varian nor Ragnaros has a gimmick like that. But they are both super interesting and super fun from a design and the gameplay perspective. But I have to admit, I am more excited about Ragnaros because the idea of, you know, temporarily replacing a fortress to be a giant fire demon smashing people with the hammer and summoning meteors and lava waves, just everything about that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, he looks fantastic.
And also, I think you alluded to this earlier, but they're doing a promotion that starts on November 14th, the day that Varian comes out, where and it lasts about 6 weeks, lasts until the first week of January, I think. So that might be 7 weeks. Where if you play 30 games with friends during that period, they give you a boatload of rewards. You get 5 heroes for free. I already own 3 of them, but I'll take it anyway. And a stim pack, which will give you a giant experience and gold boost, and a new mount, and a new portrait, and a skin for Overwatch players, for a skin for Hanzo in Overwatch. So,
and also there's a second Overwatch character. I cannot remember who it was.
well, no,
Or is that for if you play 30 games?
no. That's if you play. There's a part of some of these rewards are for playing 13, and then the others are for playing 30. But I was just putting them all together. The 5 characters you get are Zarya, Greymane, Kerrigan, Li Ming, and Oriel, and I own 3 of them.
Hey,
but...
I have none of those. That's awesome.
Nice. So if you do 30 games in those 7 weeks with friends, you can't solo queue. You have to play with a friend for it to count. Then you'll get 5 characters and a bunch of free extras, which is great. They've done promotions like this all the time to give extra rewards to dedicated players. But I have no objections at all to more rewards just for playing the game. So yeah.
This was. Did you look up like anything written for this? It was confusing to me because I viewed it as I could either play Overwatch with a friend or Heroes with a friend. And as long as that total equal to those amounts, it would be good enough. Or am I misreading that?
I think it's just Heroes of the Storm because there's only one Overwatch reward in there, and it was included in Heroes of the Storm news and materials. So I mean, it's not the first time they've done a crossover reward. I got a mount in Heroes of the Storm for finishing a Diablo seasonal quest last year, and I still use that mount sometimes.
That's too bad. I'll never get that then.
30 games. Well, it's 7 weeks, so they give you a lot of time.
I have in my life played 4 games of Heroes, I think.
Okay, so you probably can't use that pace to get these rewards.
Yeah, and there was a semester of school that I was actively trying to play the game too, so I don't feel like this is going to work out for me.
Well, I'll be able to get that just as a matter of course.
Ooh, la-di-da.
And if you or any listeners want to play Heroes of the Storm with me, all you need to do is find me on Twitter or the forums, and I'll happily log on. It takes very, very little prompting to get me to play Heroes of the Storm. And these new characters look totally dope, and I really want to try both. Oh, and also, sorry, one last thing. They mentioned Varian comes out on November 14th, and Ragnaros comes out sometime in December. Oh, and that reminds me. I forgot to. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, man. But for the Overwatch stuff, Sombra and they're releasing Sombra and 2 new maps, and Sombra and the first map come later this month on the public test realm, and the second map comes in December on the public test realm.
Well, that was the really impressive thing is a lot of the stuff, like almost everything, I felt like they're like, and next week it will be on the public trust form. 2 weeks from now, everything was like really quick turnaround. I was like, good job, guys. Like
Yeah,
that,
yeah, a bunch of stuff coming at the end of 2016. That's impressive.
yeah, and definitely with how Blizzard usually works. Like, well, we'll get back to you in a year.
They also announced a bunch of very minor things for Heroes of the Storm, like improvements to matchmaking and character progression, but all of that's 2017, and all of that's subject to change. So yeah, you check out go to one of the big Blizzard or Heroes sites to check that out. It would be weird speculation and very minute details if I were to go into it here.
Yeah, no, it got me excited again for Heroes of the Storm. I always flip in and out with interest. It's always one of those I really, really want to play it. I want to dedicate it, but then every time I look at it, it's like those are long games.
Well, they're fast for MOBA standards, but still long for gaming standards. A Heroes of the Storm average game, I think, is around 18 to 20 minutes. But for League of Legends, that number's closer to an hour. But
Yeah,
still, I mean, that's way shorter than a fighting game or a first-person shooter, and I understand how that's a little bit daunting.
yeah, and that's where it's kind of like it loses me every time. But mix the characters, and then also I love rewards for things. I think the rewards might be enough for me to sort of try.
Well, that 7-week period is really good, and you still get some of the rewards for only doing 15, because you get one of those 5 heroes and that Overwatch skin for doing just 15 games in that 7-week period, and then you get the other 4 heroes and all the other extras for doing 30. So I went straight to 30 because I know I'm going to play 30 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a regular group of friends that I play with all the time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you'll be fine. I have full confidence you'll not have an issue with this.
Great.
I have full confidence I'll have tons of issues with this.
But one thing you won't have an issue with is playing this new Hearthstone expansion.
Yeah, this new thing. I've never heard about it. When were they going to tell us about this game?
So I've only played Hearthstone during the beta a little bit, but I'm obviously aware of how successful it is and popular it is. But I guess the gist of it is that they're doing a new setting where it's like 3 different crime organizations in an underworld, and there's a bunch of cross-class cards and one card that lets you create your own card, and it all sounds insane to me. Please break this down for me a little bit, man.
Yeah, so they always have themed expansions. This one happens to be
Is it Gadgetopia or something?
no. Now I feel stupid.
I forget. I mean, I thought you would have this.
I don't really I don't really care about
The name's not important.
yeah, and that's kind of at the end of the day I don't care about that. And with that, so there's 9 heroes. With that, there's a boatload of just neutral cards that anybody can use, and then a set of cards for each of the different classes. And the big transition from that has always been they have these unique cards that you can steal a card from somebody here or there, but for the most part, you are locked in. And with this, they're having it's almost like clans, and so they're grouping together like classes. So priest, warlock, and mage, they all use magic. They're going to be a clan. And with that, there's going to be a card then, or groups of cards, there's a whole set of cards now, that will be able to go into any of those 3 classes, but then the other classes can't use them.
Yeah, because normally Hearthstone has either class-specific cards or common cards that any class can use.
Right.
But this is doing a different level of specificity, I guess. And but is there nothing like that in Hearthstone before now?
No, like it's either you get really they have all sorts of random things where you can steal stuff, but for the most part that's rogue. And there's a couple priest spells, but largely you are stuck with your class. You're building that out. They looked like they made them really strong, so I kind of question they look almost overpowered. So it'll be interesting to kind of dig into them.
But if everyone's overpowered, then then is that the same as balanced?
So we ran into this issue. This would have been 3 expansions ago. When they came out with goblins and gnomes, everything was super ridiculously overpowered. And so part of the reason I think that they switched to they have standard and wild now. Standard is only the two most recent years of expansion. Everything else moves into wild. I think part of the reason they did that is they were having kind of power creep and all sorts of issues of complexity,
Right.
because they had just made things way too powerful. Um, and so they had been purposely kind of underpowering things for a while, and this is the first time it looks like they're really, really kind of swinging for it with massive like strength issues. Um, but then again, it's one of those things because one of the big issues they have in the past is mage is always really strong because they have magic. And then priest, because they're supposed to heal stuff, at the end of the day, they're not aggressive, so they're going to heal things. I
So
could,
giving priest way more damage or mage way more healing has those classes step outside their regular style and could really some weird stuff could happen.
right, and that's so. I'm overall really excited for it, but I'm kind of hesitant. It should make priest not terrible because priest has always been terrible. But at the same time, mage has always been super powerful, so adding more quality cards is probably just gonna make them stronger still. Um, but for the meta of everything, you get into a lot of just standard archetypes. Like there's always a tempo mage, there's always a freeze mage. By having more different types of cards, hopefully there'll be more creativity. And that's truly where I'm excited for this is when you have a select number of cards that are only class specific, it's very easy to get locked into I am going to do this every time. And by adding in hybrid cards, they have to kind of match some other classes and how they're supposed to be played. It adds a different angle that you can approach each hero. And so it should be fascinating. With that, they also you kind of alluded to it. They have options where you're making your own cards. So you play a card, and if you have the necessary requirements for it, you get choices. Which they've already had these choices, but it's always been I play this card and I pick from three things.
Okay.
This is I pick. I'm literally crafting my own card, and they said there's hundreds of different options because you pick do I want a 1 cost, 5 cost, or 10 cost. Based off of that, they get different abilities. So it'd either be like a draw 1, draw 2, or draw 3, or deal 2, deal 4, deal 6 damage. And then you'd add a second element to this. So you'd have also gain 2, 4, or 6 armor.
So it's just basically a customizable card, but with more customization than Hearthstone has had in the past for these skills like these.
I compare it a lot to Varian.
Sure. Okay.
And so it's giving you freedom of I wasn't necessarily ready for the opponent to do this. I can either have a card that I can use right now and have a small effect. I can wait for my tempo for next turn because a lot of them are 4 cost cards, so you go into 5, it'd be next turn. I can plan for that, or I know that this is the direction the game's going, so I'm going to wait 5 or 6 turns and I'm going to play this really strong card, but I have to survive to that point. So it adds definitely an extra element of strategy, which will be great. My only problem with all of this is, and this kind of touches on what happened in the pro scene today. There was probably unquestionably the best Hearthstone player currently playing right now. And he absolutely crushed this dude in 3 games. So he had to close it out with one last game, and then he lost 4 games straight with like the most ridiculous random crap that popped up. That it was like
But
there's 400 cards that can pop up, and if this one card pops up, he'll lose the game. And like those situations happened like 6 times in a row to him.
was it unlucky draws, or was it an actual element of randomness, like a dice roll within a card that defeated them?
It was a ridiculous dice roll.
Oh man. Okay, so
Yeah.
I bet he's furious.
Oh, everybody's pissed because it's one of those things, and I tweeted out about this right away. It is a perfect encapsulation of everything that's been wrong in Hearthstone lately.
Like fun, dramatic, terrific game that has too much randomness.
Right, and that's they started off and they've always had randomness involved in the game, but it's always been to the point that you could have very skilled players tweak the randomness in their advantage. So you'd have an element of I can pull one of my opponent's minions to my side, and if I set up the situation correctly, I know exactly which person I'm going to pull because I plan for this. I was able to understand the cards, all the interactions, and I made this interaction happen. And over time, that's turned into I'm going to play this card, and I'm going to hope and pray that this goes well for me. And that's I look at kind of this build your own cards, and there's a lot of just like there is an element of strategy because you are picking out effects, you are picking out costs for these, but at the same time, there's a lot of you might just get super super lucky. And then also, it's always been Hearthstone. I think one of the closest approximation is chess, and it's one of those things you memorize your first 10 to 15 moves. And then from that, you get into the middle game of I have to really be responsive to what the other person is doing. And then you close out the game based off of kind of memorization of how to close things out and knowing how to respond to certain situations. And I think that transfers over to Hearthstone really well. As they moved into kind of steal cards from the other classes and a lot of randomization, a lot of that's just been kind of thrown out the window, and you're not able to really understand what the other person has whatsoever. So there is no element of strategy. You're just playing blindly, and basically then it becomes a tempo game where I have 5 mana available this turn. I'm going to put down a 5-cost card because that's probably what's best, because I should just do the most I can every turn. And everybody had really hoped, and they had been speaking they had been saying all the right things going into BlizzCon, that they understood this was an issue. And so for them to come back and all the cards they showed today were all super, super randomized.
Mm.
And so it's one of those things, we've had a really, really rough 6 to 9 months of just RNG bullcrap. And I really, really like the cards. I love the aesthetic. I actually enjoy kind of the clans of 3 different classes being grouped together. All of that seems super interesting. But it looks like we're going to have another 6 months of a lot of just RNG and dice rolls and hoping. So
I mean, is this going to prevent you from getting into it, or do you think you're still in it? You're going to get the expansion. You're gonna spend some time and money into it.
So at the end of the day, Hearthstone, I still adore Hearthstone. It is because it's on my phone. I can play it whenever I want. I still find it very relaxing. But it definitely has turned from, and that's what I was saying earlier. I used to always be in the top 1%.
Right.
First of all, it's harder to get up there because you have to usually grind out more games, because even though you were quote unquote the better player, it didn't show out because of the RNG. And then that just gets frustrating. So most time I just stop at some point because I get too mad. But I'll keep going. I really enjoy the back and forth. I like being pitted against somebody else. I like the strategy elements of it. I know a lot of the audience gets turned away from that, and I prefer to see this them not beat Hearthstone into the ground by making it fun and flashy. It can still have all those elements, but at some point it has to come back to strategy. And at the end of the day, you need to think that the better player actually won.
Right.
And I honestly don't think that is the case sometimes.
I mean, I'm going back to that guy you said who's perhaps the best Hearthstone player in the world, losing multiple matches in a row and knocking out of the tournament because of random elements. That just seems like the most maddening thing in the world to me. To what should be a game of skill, and is a game of skill most of the time.
Yeah, literally, multiple times they're like, he has one out. There is, and if he plays this card, he needs this card to pull, and it got pulled.
It's like he needs this card, and he needs to get the 10% best roll on that card to win, and it happened
every single time. And it wasn't even like, hey, this is at least in his deck, so 1 out of 15 chance or 1 out of 10 chance that one of them pulls up. It was literally, he had to have that 1 out of 10 chance that this card came up, then he had to play it and have the 1 out of 40 or 1 out of 70 or 1 out of 80 odds to actually have the spell come through.
That would be incredibly frustrating. And in a way, you could spin that positively. Like a comeback, a comeback element is, fun or encouraging to people. But I mean, still, if losing on the other side, losing because of that sounds absolutely maddening. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's they kept
Hearthstone has a bunch of new stuff, and it all looks cool, but there's more randomness in it.
right, and that's I think
Man,
fortunately or fortunately, it will be better for the casual player. I think the casual players have a better chance at winning. It'll be more fun. It'll be more exciting. Lots of things are happening. Lots of things are exploding. That's great for all those people. I
I
think.
do love watching things explode. I
Yep.
really
Yeah.
do.
And I think it makes it more fun for spectators. Like they kept talking about, like this is the most exciting game that's ever happened in Hearthstone, and I'm looking at Reddit and I'm looking at Twitter and I'm just watching all these people who like just pissed off because you have all these
Well,
people that like understand what just happened, and it's not like getting caught up with the excitement of the announcers. You're just sitting there like that was BS. Like that really sucks. Like I feel terrible for this person. Like that should never have happened. And I think.
if a World Series game came down to a dice roll, then probably, and speaking of the recent World Series, probably both Cleveland and Chicago would burn to the ground.
Yeah, there'd be just riots, and that's where it was one of those things. It's like, I want esports to be legitimate, but it's just at the end of the day, like you have certain stuff like that, and it's like, well, this doesn't deserve to be legitimate.
Wow.
That's so it's a weird place for me because I love Hearthstone, but like today I was like, no, like this tournament's. Sorry, I almost swore. You almost had to edit that. Like this isn't even worth my time. And like it was nice because I kept watching all of the. I had the game, all the World Championship on while I was watching all the breakout sessions, and progressively like I just muted the game and I turned up all the breakout sessions for BlizzCon up because that progressively got more and more interesting to me because I was like, I don't have time for this. Like this is ridiculous. So there's the happy moment.
So yeah,
like
there's
happy
a
wrap up for Hearthstone.
Yep, good old Happy Josh. That's why we call you Happy Josh. Nobody calls him Happy Josh.
Oh, it doesn't rhyme. It would be Joyous Josh.
Or Joyful Josh, or Jolly Josh. Ooh,
Yeah.
Jolly Josh isn't bad.
Yeah,
Maybe we should start calling you that. But
we could be ironic.
well, but before we give you a new ironic nickname, I think we were both pretty excited about the changes coming to Diablo.
Yes, I super excited for Diablo. That was the nice thing is going right out of Hearthstone, and I was like, oh well, I don't know, that's gonna be kind of iffy. And then I came to Diablo and I was like, everything that they just announced is ridiculously cool.
And you know, one announcement that actually seemed super low key, I think might be the best announcement of all. Maybe you heard this, maybe you didn't, but they're bringing all of the PC seasonal content to consoles next year.
I had not heard that. That is awesome.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same patch where they add the armory. One of the other minor announcements was they're adding an armory that allows you to switch builds and switch gems out for free. Just to
really cool.
Yeah, just to make character switching and build switching much easier and faster, which is great. But in that same patch, which is going to PC and console, all of the PC exclusive seasonal content is going to consoles. That is awesome. That's
So
huge.
Does that mean that we'll just start the seasons when we're behind you, or it's just like one big dump? How is that going to work?
Probably just they're around the time they start a new season on PC. I think they're just going to update the consoles to everything that's at that season. That's awesome. They were unclear about that, but they said that one of the biggest requests they had gotten was seasonal content on consoles, and that is happening next year. That's terrific.
I'm going to spend so much time with that.
But there was two announcements that are way higher profile and also very exciting coming to Diablo. There was a bunch, but there's two that really stand out.
Diablo 4.
Nope.
Oh, I guess we were wrong with that one.
You know what? The funniest part is I should mention that there was a leak a few days ago. We're recording this on a Friday, and I think this leak was Wednesday. That of some art showing a male and female necromancer standing next to each other. So, the internet went ablaze. They knew it was from the upcoming BlizzCon stuff, but people were divided. They weren't sure if it was a Diablo 2 remake or a Diablo 3 expansion or possibly Diablo 4. It seemed like Diablo 3 expansion was the most popular guess, and that's what I would have guessed. But the answer ended up being none of those three. They are adding a necromancer. There's a very cool trailer narrated by the male one, and the necromancer was playable on the show floor at BlizzCon with a loadout of 6 skills, but nothing beyond those 6. and it's coming in an update in 2017, and it's going to be called the Rise of the Necromancer Pack, and it's the first paid DLC that is going into Diablo 3, or at least since they shut down the Real Money Auction House, which isn't really the same as paid DLC.
Well, in all fairness, Reaper of Souls was paid DLC.
Well, no, but it's a traditional expansion pack that adds a bunch of things. This pack, and Diablo and well, a bunch of Blizzard games have expansion packs. Almost, maybe most of them do even. But the Rise of the Necromancer pack is something new for Diablo. It adds the Necromancer as a playable class. It adds 2 character slots, 2 new stash tabs, and then a handful of cosmetic things like I think probably wings and a pet and a portrait. But they haven't announced a price yet, and it's saying it's going to come in the second half of 2017. But they're doing this, they're doing this instead of a big story expansion that adds a new act. The plan going forward for Diablo 3 is to keep adding stuff in seasonal patches. They mentioned that 2 other things coming in 2017 are 2 new regions to mess around with in adventure mode. I think it's going to be similar to the Ruins of Sescheron that they added last year.
Yeah, they had 2 more. That's immediately what I thought of too, because that's where you got the cube, right?
Yeah. Ruins of Sescheron's where you get the cube, and these will be 2 new areas like that. Where there's new new content, a lot of new dialogue, but nothing that's really moves the story along. Nothing as impactful as a new act. And because for those that don't know, both Diablo 2 and 3 are the story is divided into acts, and in each act you travel to a new land and do multiple dungeons and bosses within the act. But none. There's not going to be a new act, just 2 new dungeons in 2017. And then maybe the most exciting announcement, they're recreating Diablo, the town of Tristram from Diablo 1 in a new special 16-floor dungeon. Basically recreating the dungeon of Diablo 1 in Diablo 3.
I freaked out when I saw that. Because he flat out just said, like, don't play the original, play this.
Yeah. And it's wild. It uses the Diablo 3 classes, so you use one of your Diablo 3 characters in this dungeon. They didn't bring back like the warrior, the rogue, and the sorcerer. But and it goes on and the crazy thing is it's going to be playable in January, and it goes on the PTR in a few weeks. So it's all coming very soon. But what you do is you go to a portal, and it's a separate map from the other areas in Diablo 3. And they recreate all of the Diablo 1 bosses. They remove about 25% of character animations, so characters move in like a stiff, choppy way like Diablo 1, and they deliberately are pixelating the graphics so it looks like a 90s game. And they're changing character models and adding some new character models to make them look, and also changing enemy AI so that they attack directly and stupidly like in 1996, and look like Diablo 1 monsters. It's ridiculous. The only boss they showed was the Butcher, who's the Act 1 boss in Diablo 3, and is the first boss you encounter in Diablo 1. We talked about the Butcher a little bit earlier, and he looks like the bright red pudgy Butcher instead of the stitched together like burning metal detailed Butcher from Diablo 3. They're recreating Diablo 1 in Diablo 3, and it's going to have a lot of hidden story content that they aren't telling us yet. And it's going to have seasonal. It's going to have rewards for completing it on different difficulties with different characters. And they also said they wanted to make it an annual thing. It's going to run for probably all of January. I think they said a month or a little over a month, and you get rewards for completing it in January. And they want to bring it back every year with new rewards.
That was the most surprising thing, is that they committed to long-term support on this.
Yes, I mean that is surprising, but it's also consistent because Diablo 2 came out in I think 98 or 99. And they did a patch for Diablo 2 to balance synergies and improve some connectivity with with Windows 7 machines or something in 2013.
But it's completely different to not promise something and completely over deliver. It's a completely different thing to be like, yeah, we're gonna consistently do this.
The thing about Diablo 3's ongoing model, the seasonal one that the PC uses, is they're keeping people engaged with seasonal content, which varies in how good it is. Like it's actually been a little stale the past few months because you sort of complete the same routine of making a level 1 character, having them get to level 70 as soon as they can. Then you start farming materials in adventure mode and getting to higher torment levels and defeating all the special bosses in different and higher level rifts and higher level like Malthael runs. It's and they're consistently adding things, but it's in small patches, and the gameplay loop for the end game never really changed.
Right.
This new Diablo 1 recreation looks amazing, but I'm a little surprised that they're only running it for a month and are committing to have it come every year instead of just do a new large patch that people will pay for, like another expansion. Even whether it's $40 or $20 or $60, I think people like Diablo 3 enough that they'll pay for more of it. But for some reason, and I'm still wondering if this is because the auction house failed so spectacularly.
I love the auction house. I just want to say that it gets so much crap. I love the auction house.
I actually didn't play Diablo 3 during the auction house time because I heard how bad it was, but I wasn't really into it then.
I made like $20 off of it. It was great.
And that's $20 you didn't have before, right?
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I'm excited for all this Diablo stuff. I can't wait to play the recreation of Diablo 1. I mean, man, they ran through it with a dual wield barbarian, and it looked like grainy videos of someone goose stepping. It was terrific.
Yeah, because you had already mentioned it, but they purposely made it so that you only have 8 directions of.
Right, yeah, only 8 directions of movement instead of 360.
And you just watch it, and like they slowed down all the animation, so it looks all choppy and crap, and it was like they even changed the heads up display, like all of it. Like you can tell this was a labor of love, and it was expertly done.
And it's free. It's a free patch, and they're targeting January for it, but. So I don't really understand why they're doing content without expansions, because that Reaper of Souls expansion was huge and changed Diablo 3 for the better and is part of why Diablo 3 continues to be a popular game. But instead of charging money and having a larger amount of content in an expansion, they're giving us a lot of stuff for free and having us pay for a character. So
I think you're looking at it wrong. This is one of the reasons that Blizzard is loved. Like, they're doing it this way because, like, they are celebrating an anniversary, a huge milestone. This isn't about making money. This is about them, like, giving back.
Well, yeah, and you're absolutely right. But I'm someone that's a little bit interested in the game industry and how they do business and why they charge for certain things and not others. But I'm just not sure why they're delivering so much content for free and having us pay for a character when they've never done that before, instead of using an expansion model, which they have done successfully before. It's interesting to me, and I'm hugely grateful as a fan that almost all of the Diablo 3 stuff is free, and I'm gonna buy that Necromancer no matter what the price is. They haven't announced a price yet. But it would have to be really bad for me to not get it.
That's also the thing, is they know they're going to get all of our money because all of us are going to buy that character.
Yeah, but it's strange to me that, like, Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone make unbelievable amounts of money from cosmetic DLC and content microtransactions. They make tons of money from microtransactions. Diablo 3 never had microtransactions, and they're suddenly doing one for the first time instead of doing a new expansion. Because I thought that we were definitely... I was very... I'm not sure how certain I was, but I would have guessed that we were getting a Diablo 3 expansion announcement at this BlizzCon, and it didn't happen.
And it was going to be 4, or it was going to be an expansion. I think everybody can basically agree that they thought one or the other.
Sure, yeah, but instead it's neither, and they're trying something unusual and new. And I don't think it's bad. I'm not disappointed. I'm just
You
a little.
sound disappointed.
No, no, no. I'm not disappointed because I'm glad we're getting all of this, and I'm glad that a lot of it is free. I'm just puzzled that they're doing it this way, and I'm not sure how the community is going to react to character DLC, or sorry, paid character DLC rather than a paid expansion. And also, I mean, the story in Diablo 3 isn't great, but I do kind of want to see how it continues. They mention a few things in happening in Act 5 of the Diablo 3 expansion. They mention a few locations in the world where there's activity going on, and I kind of want to see what's going on there. But that's a little silly. It's
Speaking of story, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, you're gonna
Sure.
kill me for doing this.
Oh no. Well, I mean, we are like 1,000 miles apart, so it would be impressive. But let's see how I'll kill you.
Um, so one of the really cool things about Overwatch is everybody kept talking about, are we going to see like some sort of TV show off of this? Because everybody likes the short so much,
Oh sure, okay.
and they super tease that it might be in the works.
Hmm. Oh, well, that's why would I kill you for that? That's interesting.
Because we're talking about Diablo, and I keep getting us sidetracked off of other stuff.
I don't mind you getting sidetracked. I just don't like skipping ahead. Revisiting back is better than skipping ahead because
Okay.
if we skip ahead, we're likely to ignore stuff. But
No,
no,
noted.
that is cool. I hadn't heard of talk of an Overwatch cartoon.
Yeah,
That's neat.
they kept pushing it when they had like the like roundtables after the breakout sessions.
Uh
They
huh.
went back to the moderators, and
Right.
they kept pushing on it, and then finally they're like, they did that whole like, well, we have nothing to announce this time, but it would be really cool, wouldn't it? It was like almost one of those like wink wink type of things, and I was like, so we are maybe getting
Well, I
this?
mean that's cool, but also Overwatch has been out for 6 months, not even 6 months. That's getting really ahead
Yeah.
of yourself doing an animated TV show for
Yeah.
a game that's barely out.
But for me, what I really liked off of that is I've always really liked Diablo, but I felt like we don't. I mean, it's not a story type of game.
No, it's not. But I'm attached to Diablo 3 enough and like the Diablo lore enough that I want more of it. And
Right,
you
absolutely.
know what? I'm gonna track back what I said before. I am a little disappointed because I wanted an expansion and instead we're getting paid character DLC. I'm gonna buy that paid character DLC, and I might complain about it a little bit, but I'm gonna buy it anyway. But it's not exactly what I wanted.
But what I would really like is if the successes with Overwatch are able to pave the way for more content-rich ways of interacting with some of these games.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
If they added some kind of story mode to Heroes of the Storm, I would play all of it, even if it was super dumb. Because the story mode in Heroes of the Storm is basically when you play the tutorial, and Raynor and Uther
so
comment.
bad.
Yeah, they comment on how impossible and ridiculous this situation is for about 30 seconds, and that's all the story you're getting. Then I think Diablo taunts you, and Uther tells you to shoot him.
Yeah. Well, does that really not surprise you?
No, and it's more than they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always really liked the aesthetic of Diablo. And if one of the byproducts of Overwatch being super successful and kind of becoming a TV show or whatever it becomes, or even if with Warcraft all of a sudden this next movie is fantastic, so everybody freaks out about it. It would be great to have something similar for Diablo.
I would not mind an explosion of Diablo popularity resulting in more Diablo for me to play. That sounds great.
Yeah, yeah, that's all I had.
And also, I mean, I think I mentioned this before, but I'm not an FPS guy. I don't play Overwatch, but I think the designs in Overwatch are super cool and charming and likable. Like I know the cast fairly well just because I've seen the community react so positively with fan art and memes and comics and whatnot. And I cannot wait to get more Overwatch characters in Heroes of the Storm. There's only two right now, Zarya and Tracer. But I mean, the Overwatch designs are so good, and that game has such flavor to it that I'm super impressed by it, and
Yeah.
more. I don't object to more Overwatch either, even though I'm not an Overwatch player.
So, we've kind of talked about everything. Was there any disappointments for you?
Okay, putting the Diablo stuff aside because we've talked about that a little. Um, I'm a little disappointed we only got 2 hero announcements for Heroes of the Storm because last year we got 3 upcoming, plus the Cho'Gall thing, Cho'Gall virus thing that was awesome, plus the announcement of one distant future one. So like 3 plus a fourth upcoming and a really cool promotion. And this time we only got 2 with a less cool promotion. And also, I guess I was a little disappointed that there wasn't really any real-time strategy. They didn't. There's no Warcraft 4 and no more Starcraft 2 like major releases. Just more patches and small amounts of content for arguably Blizzard's 2 original signature franchises.
So I know it's stupid, but I actually got myself legitimately hyped for Warcraft 4.
Okay, that is a little stupid.
Like that was my like throwaway like ha 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 look at Josh, he's coming up with this stupid theory like be
But
really
you-
cool, but it's never gonna happen.
But you were genuinely excited for the possibility?
And I started thinking about it and I was like, it actually kind of makes sense. Like this would be really really cool. Like StarCraft effectively in a lot of ways in the mainstream is dead. Like they could pull this off. Like that would be really exciting. Like everybody would freak out. It's a good anniversary like game to come out with. Like, and I started thinking about it more and more. And I got super super hyped for it. And then when and we already talked about how disappointing the beginning was. I was like, they could have used that. People would have lost their mind.
Yes, they would have lost their mind.
So that, and then oddly enough, the only other thing that was really disappointing for me is I sort of got excited for a new movie announcement.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if I was excited for a Warcraft 2 movie announcement because
I didn't say I was excited for the movie. I'm excited for
Right.
the announcement.
I wasn't sure if we were getting one or not, and also because the Warcraft movie came out earlier this year. But I was a little surprised that they didn't announce one because they seemed to set it up, as we mentioned earlier.
Right. Yeah, and they did such a good job hyping me up for it. I was like, all right, well, maybe next year. But yeah, it's really minor quibbles at that point. I could complain like you have multiple times about not getting free character or something.
Yeah,
Sounding
I'm
a
just
little entitled there.
Yeah, I am so entitled. If I don't get something for free immediately, then I just immediately take to Twitter and Reddit and Tumblr and just complain until I get it for free, and it doesn't usually work out for me.
Well, if you had a
Yeah.
more respectable Tumblr, maybe people would take you more seriously.
I'm not
so.
sure. I'm not sure any Tumblr is respectable, but yeah, I may have been speaking with sarcasm, by the way.
Maybe.
But maybe.
Maybe.
Just a little bit.
But yeah, I think overall, I was overall happier with this than I thought I was going into. It seemed like it could be a very weak year. I mean, you have Heroes of Storm, you're gonna have, or sorry, Hearthstone, you're gonna have more cards. Heroes and Overwatch are gonna be more characters. Nothing for World of Warcraft, nothing for Starcraft, and we assumed an expansion or a new Diablo, but we weren't really sure. And it could have been a really ho-hum, boring, not exciting BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm. We did get a lot of Diablo stuff, and Diablo was almost a no-show last year. So I'm glad Diablo is way better than last year.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, it turned out to be a solid conference overall. So I am happy with it.
I'm also happy with it, and again, we're recording this on the BlizzCon Friday, and we still have panels and esports and more stuff tomorrow. And
I get to suffer through more Hearthstone tomorrow. Yay!
Well, hopefully, none of this stuff tomorrow is so earth-shattering that we should have waited to record this. But
Let's do another one.
oh, I don't know about that. But we've talked about it a lot already, and yeah, BlizzCon, exciting stuff.
Yeah. Get excited. In another year's time, you can hear us ramble about more Blizzard stuff for about an hour and a half. Seems like this is now officially an annual thing.
Well, I mean, after it happens twice, it's a pattern officially, right?
Yeah, it's the annual Blizzard check-in with Retro Encounter.
The annual Blizzard encounter with Josh and Mike.
Yep.
Jolly Josh and Entitled Mike.
Yep, that's. We should be a radio show. That'd be fantastic. And only one of those descriptions is actually true. It's Mike's.
I'm not going to comment on that.
But as always, we really appreciate you guys listening. We kind of mentioned this already. Last week was Child of Light. Very shortly after this comes out, another Child of Light will be coming out.
In fact, it'll be exactly a week after this one comes out. Is more Child of Light.
Whoa! Imagine how that works. But yeah, so a lot of really cool stuff coming. And then to kind of celebrate BlizzCon in what month are we in? November? Hey, it's November.
Yeah, we'll be playing in November, and those episodes will come out in December. But what are we playing, Josh?
We're going to be playing Diablo III. We had all sorts of, we'll just say, issues picking a game and having people agree to play it. So we kind of figured to celebrate kind of Diablo III both being involved with BlizzCon and then also it being in the Essential 10 list. Kind of both those are together had enough justification for Mike and I to continue just speaking only good things about Blizzard and Diablo. We have a pretty cool schedule set up. We're going to cover it from Diablo 3 from the beginning, run through all the acts, a lot of the story, some characters. I'm actually going to do a full playthrough on hardcore instead of
Ooh,
just
that's
regular.
Cool.
Yeah, which I've never done before.
Maybe I should do that too. I haven't started the run I was planning on talking about for the podcast yet, so maybe I could try a hardcore run.
Yeah, originally I thought of just kind of cheating and using my really ridiculously strong person and rolling through on easy just to see everything. But I figured having the hardcore and the extra stress of that would kind of, first of all, make an entertaining month, and then also have a little extra.
Oh yeah. To the listeners that maybe aren't Diablo players, which I'm not sure there are any, but hardcore Diablo runs mean otherwise it's identical to a normal run, except if you die, you don't get to start over. That character's dead permanently and is represented by a grave marker in your character select screen.
Yeah.
It's basically permadeath Diablo, and some fans swear by hardcore mode, and some people like me have tried it a couple times, but in general are terrified of it.
Yeah, I'm not somebody that believes in permadeath for the most part. And I definitely never tried it on Diablo, so I think it'd be fun. So yeah, get excited for that. That will be good. I'm sure hear Mike talk about Diablo. I think
I'm definitely going to be on.
Our normal time was usually about an hour to hour and 20. I think those episodes should run about 4 hours each.
We'll see, but it does Diablo. I'm an enthusiastic person that loves talking about games that I love, but Diablo is on the short list of just my absolute favorites. So it's going to be probably similar to the upcoming Final Fantasy VI episode, where I just gush for hours and hours, but we'll see how it turns out.
So if you want to see Mike gush, make sure to watch those episodes.
Phrasing, Josh. Phrasing. Come on.
I know what I did.
Okay. You're so jolly.
I am jolly. So be sure to check in next time to watch the Jolly and the Entitled. But that's going to do it for us here at Retro Encounter. Thank you for listening.
Bye, folks.